Hari Om. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Param Vedanta warmly welcomes you all to session 4 of our Brihadaranyaka Upanishad study. In our last session, we learned about how to understand the truth through Adhyarupa, Apavada, and Neti Neti. The idea of Sat Brahman and the state of deep sleep, a special hidden name for the Upanishad, the three kinds of renunciation, sannyasa, vidvat, and vividisha, a thoughtful question: whom do you love the most and why? Today, we reach the middle part of the Upanishad, which focuses on the great teaching of Mahavakya, Aham Brahmasmi. Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir, our respected teacher, will make these deep ideas easy to understand with his clear and simple explanations. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Radha. Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. We enter into the third chapter of Brihadaranyaka, and the third and the fourth chapter come under a second kandam called the Muni Kandam. It is also called Upapatti Kandam because there is a lot of logic involved. And this chapter, chapter 3, is called Muni Kandam. Muni because Yagnavalka is the principal teacher in both the chapters, chapter 3 and chapter 4. There are two important characters that you will see throughout in this chapter. And that is Yagnavalka, who is the constant teacher in all the brahmanas. And from now on, until the very end, you will see a very important role for King Janaka. Janaka was already mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita as a role model of how a person can be a grihastha and also a jnani. And then when we were looking into the Ashtavakra, we saw about the three avasthas. And the usual example given is of when King Janaka had a dream that he was a beggar. And when he woke up, he found himself in his palace. And he had a great doubt, am I that beggar? Or who's dreaming that I'm a king? Or am I a king who had a dream that I was a beggar? Because both my experiences were very real. Fortunately, he had a great sage who called Ashtavakra exists. Both of them are unreal. The fact that you are a king is also not so real. And the fact that you had a dream that you were a beggar is also not so real. Then what is real? So that is what we are discussing in all these classes. And that is the whole shift from Asatoma to Sadgamaya. We are now in the third chapter. Remember again, the teacher is Yagnavalika. In one chapter, one of the long chapters with 92 mantras, and there are 9 brahmanas. So as it is a very detailed, I'm just giving you an overview. Just imagine you are on a helicopter flying on the Brihadaranyaka, which is a big forest. And in this forest, we have divided into 3 kandams. in the third Kandam, or the second Kandam, which is Muni Kandam, has got two sections, the third chapter and the fourth chapter. We are looking into the overview of the third chapter. There are 92 mantras divided in 9 brahmanas. The first 3 are predominantly dealing with upasana. 4 to 8 is the real Vedantic teaching. The 9th is the concluding part. Among the important 4 to 8 brahmanas, the Brahmana 4 and 5 talk about the Jiva Swarupam or the Tvam Padartha. 6, 7, and 8 talk about the Paramatma Swarupam, and that is one overview. Now, story part we can always listen to, other parts. The story is like this. The story, which is the basis of the entire third chapter, is like this. King Janaka will organize a very big yaga. And this yaga is a big event. And whenever a king organizes a yaga, he will call all the priests to conduct a Mahayaga for the welfare of the whole world. So they spend a lot of this, and a great yaga was conducted. Now, whenever a yaga is conducted, because it's like a Kumbh Mela, a lot of people come to that one place, and all the great religious people also come. He said, we will also have the best scholar competition. It is like a Nobel Prize for the best scholar. And whoever is the winner of this will get 1,000 cows, and their horns are capped with gold. So this was a huge prize amount. And so all the best scholars were all attracted, and they came for this yaga. Now, Yagnavalka immediately comes to the fore. He looks at all his competition, and he tells his student, Samashrava. Samashrava means the one who is a scholar in Samaveda. Yagnavalka is an expert in Yajurveda. But he, in his yoga, in his Gurukula, he teaches all the other Vedas also. And he asks his student Samashrava, please take all the 1,000 cows to our ashram. Now, others are shocked because the competition is not yet started. He's declared himself to be the winner, and he's not only done that, he's taken the prize money also. And among the scholars were important people because they were part of King Janaka's court also. They were very angry and irritated, and they said, do you think you are the greatest scholar? He says, I do not know if I'm the greatest scholar, but one thing I know, I need those 1,000 cows, and that is why I've asked my student to take them. I have a Gurukula, and we need a lot of money, and that's why I'm taking it. Now, so the other says, you cannot take it unless we challenge you. And so there is each of those 8 scholars, there were 8 scholars, 7 of them men, one is a lady, her name is Gargi. So 7 of them will answer 7 questions each. So Gargi asks 2, and therefore Gargi will have 2 brahmanas in her name, and altogether it comes to 9 brahmanas. So the whole chapter is 9 brahmanas. So 9 brahmanas means 7 questions by 7 male and 2 questions by Gargi. And that is how you have. I will give you the essence of each. What is the first brahmana? Remember, the first 3 deal with upasanas. And there are many topics discussed. One of the important topic is, instead of just doing an upasana, if you do karma plus upasana, you have greater benefits. That is one topic that was brought about, or the answer that was given by Yagnavalka. And second question was, how can you convert an ordinary ritual into something extraordinary, something that you do every day? And Swamiji gives an example of what he calls prana agnihotram upasana. All you're doing is eating food. So 3 times a day, at least we eat food. He says, can you convert eating food into an upasana? The food is naivedyam. That means before you offer it, you make it as an offering to God. And what is the Agni? The Agni is the digestive fire. That is why we have various prayers to the digestive fire. In the Bhagavad Gita, you have those prayers that so remember, every time we eat food, can we make it a prana agni hota? That is the first, we learn that much from the first Brahmana. In the second Brahmana, the question was about Garba, and what is the greatness and limitations of Garba. That was the question. And Yagnavalka brings it out. The highest anybody can attain to is Garba or Brahmaloka, or becoming Brahmaji himself. That means you can be like the richest man in the world. You can possess all the riches in the world, not only this world, the best of all the lokas. But he says, now, even if you go to the greatest of lokas, because there are sense objects and sense organs, there is always a feeling of competition. So it is still in the domain of samsara. It is very glorious, but still you are samsara. And the solution, therefore, is jnanam, and you have to get to moksha. So this is the answer from the second Brahmana. An important message for us. Don't get enamored by all the riches in the world. Let us move towards moksha. There is a story, and I've shared the story many times, of a man who wanted to become very rich. And he dreamt, can I become the richest person in the world? And in his dream, he got an answer. Can you go to the edge of the forest by sunset? You will see a sannyasi. He will give you something that will make you the richest man in the world. Now, as predicted in his dream, as he was waiting, a sannyasi comes out and he goes running to him and says, you're supposed to give me something that makes me the richest man in the world. He said, see, I have nothing. I have no belongings. He says, can I check your belongings? When he opened the small bag he had, he found a huge diamond. He says, what is this? He says, I saw something glistening. I picked it up. Can I take it? He says, of course you can take it. He was so happy. He valued it. And it was certainly the biggest asset, and that made him the biggest person, the richest man in the whole world. But then he had a doubt. Now, here is a stranger who gave me something so valuable, and he gave it to me so effortlessly. Evidently, he must be possessing something that makes him so rich that he can part with riches, what to all of us is riches. So he goes and asks him, Maharaj, what is that which makes you so rich that you can part with something that all of us consider riches? I want that. Towards the end of the question, I will give you an answer what his reply was. So let this quest be, what is that which makes you so rich that you can part with all the wealth in the whole world? Now, if you are into Brahmaloka or even the greatest wealth in the world, you still have some limitations. That what came in the second Brahmana. What does the third Brahmana talk about? The third Brahmana talks about, the question was, what is this Ashwamedha Yaga phalam? If you do an Ashwamedha Yaga, and the answer is you can attain to Hiranyagarbha, that is the highest. And there also he repeats the same thing, that even if you attain to Hiranyagarbha, you're still within the domain of samsara. You're still within that Hridaya Granthi of limitations. It is not a worthy goal. And these are the learnings that come from there. And then from Veda Purva, we come to Veda Anta in the fourth Brahmana. And the fourth Brahmana, the question that was asked is, Ushasta Muni asked Yagnavalika, what is Atma? What is the innermost essence of all the individual? And here is where Yagnavalika answers what Swamiji tells us every time. Consciousness is not a part, it's not a product, it is not a property. This great teaching that Swamiji has come very nicely brought out in the fourth Brahmana of the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And because this is a great teaching, and Swamiji has told it 100 times, I will just touch on it every time. Because this is also what is called Prajnanam Brahma. Prajnanam means consciousness. That consciousness in all of us is Brahman. That consciousness in me, in you, which Sri Krishna calls Kshetrajnam Chapi Mam Vidhi Sarva Kshetreshu Bharata, is not a part of the body. It is not a product of the body. That means it is not a secretion of the body. It is not a property of the body, like science believes that consciousness, in science, we also talk of consciousness, unconsciousness. These are all the stages of the mind. They have nothing to do with Atma or consciousness. So this is always a great confusion. Students of Vedanta, when you say that consciousness, because of which you're able to hear and listen to me, that consciousness which we talk in Vedanta, that conscious principle, we call it as Atma. Of course, it is the same consciousness that we talk about in science, but there we are talking about as a property of the mind. Here we talk of an independent entity, just like the light on my hand is not a part or a property or a product of my hand. It is an independent entity which pervades. So too, consciousness is all pervasive. It is able to enliven my body. And even when the body drops, consciousness continues to survive. And that is what we should know about Atma. And this is the learning from Yagnavalka in the fourth Brahma. How do I know, or how do I own up that consciousness? So again, this was the question. Now, once I know who I am, how do I own up? And the answer is through Drishya Viveka. Swamiji has again told us in the fundamental principles. I am other than whatever I experience. I experience my body. I experience my mind. That is why you have those Nidityasanam shlokas. Mana, Buddhi, Ahankara, Chitta, Naham. I'm not any of these. Then what am I? Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham. That which never goes, that which is always there, that which is free from all attributes. So we have these two fundamental laws. I am other than whatever I experience. The real me has no attributes. My body has attributes, my mind has attributes. The Atma has no attribute in time, it is always there. No attribute in space, it is everywhere. And it is limitless. In this also, there are those famous mantras. Na drishtar drishtaram pashet. That means you cannot see the seer, you cannot hear the hearer, you cannot think about the thinker. So this is real Atma. These are the famous mantras of BRIHADARANYAKA, which Swamiji keeps on quoting about who am I. With that, we finish the important fourth Brahmana, or what we need to take from there. In the fifth Brahmana, there is a question that was asked, that consciousness is free from all attributes, means it is free from all doshas, it is free from all limitations. It is highlighted here. And therefore, the byproduct, that learning, that is, as an Atma, we are never free. As Atma, I am always free. And this is another important phrase. This can be derived from the fifth Brahmana. As body-mind, there is no complete solution to any problem. As Atma, there is no problem. I don't want to go more into details of the fifth Brahmana. We will go into the next. But before that, there is an important topic that comes. How do I get to know my real self? The answer again is through Shravanam, through Mananam, and to Nidityasanam. And then Yagnavalka gives the 4-point through Sannyasa. He says Sannyasa is required to get Atma Jnanam. Shankaracharya also emphasizes very much on sannyasa, but Swamiji has given a new definition. And for us who are grihasthas, who are committed to our family, this is a very important definition, extremely difficult. And what does Swamiji have to say about his understanding that keeps us in the path of Atma Jnanam without becoming sannyasis? A mental sannyasi is one who's mentally prepared to lose anything at any time. See what a powerful definition. All that I possess, my body, my mind, my family, my possessions, my profession, and anything that I value in this world, I'm only a custodian. Prarabdha or karma has brought these two things together. The real owner is somebody else, Paramatma, who brought us together. And I should be ready to relinquish this at any time. And if I'm able to be prepared for this, I have learned a great message from the fifth Brahmana of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. We now go to the sixth Brahmana. And in the sixth Brahmana, the challenger is Gargi. Gargi is a great, one of the great women in the field of Vedanta. And she asked, what are the various levels of experience? That means in different loka, you have different levels of experience. And what is the highest you can go? And he says, he takes you to Hiranya Garba. the highest in form of experiences, the highest loka is Hiranyagarbha. Then Gargi asks another question. Is there something beyond that also? And Yagnavalka says, intellectually, you cannot go beyond. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. Through logic, through the mind and reasoning, you cannot go beyond Hiranyagarbha. Because what I'm talking about, what is consciousness, my true nature, is not available for logical analysis. But he definitely indicates there is something beyond Hiranyagarbha, and that is Atma or consciousness, and that comes in the sixth Brahmana. Then comes the seventh Brahmana. In the seventh Brahmana, the discussion is between Hiranyagarbha and Antaryami. Now, these are two definitions we should know. What do you mean by Hiranyagarbha and what is Antaryami? Now, for that, you have to know what is an Upadhi. Upadhi. Now, whenever the original consciousness falls on me and I have various Upadhis, I have the gross body, the subtle body, and the causal body. And of all these bodies, the mind has the ability to reflect. So that means when the original consciousness or the Atma falls on my mind, an image is formed, like an image on the mirror, and that new entity that is born is called a Jivatma. The Jivatma is a combination of the original consciousness, the reflecting medium, and the reflection that is born. So too, the question is, what is Hiranyagarbha and what is Antaryami? We discussed this in Mandukya. Vishwa, Virat, Taijasa, Hiranyagarbha, Prajna, Ishvara. Ishvara is also called Antaryami. Now, Vishwa, Virat, Hiranyagarbha, Taijasa are all reflected consciousness based on the reflecting media. What is the reflecting media? Gross body, subtle body, causal body. And in the Samashti, what is the reflecting media? The gross universe, the subtle universe, and the causal universe. Now, based on from which entity? Now, if the total subtle universe, now, Hiranyagarbha is consciousness manifesting through this definition we should remember. Samashti, the total Sukshma Prapancha. Pratibimba Chaitanya, that reflection that comes from the total subtle body. That means I have a mind, you have a mind. Just like internet, if all our minds, not only human minds, the plant, animal minds, the subtle bodies of all are integrated, that total, the reflected consciousness is Brahmaji or Hiranyagarbha. So there is a discussion on what is Hiranyagarbha and then what is Antaryami. Antaryami is one level higher because that is the reflection that comes from the total causal body or Maya, and that becomes what is called Ishvara. Right? So there are also very beautiful mantra which Swamiji keeps on quoting: Adrishto Drishta, Ashrute Shrota, Amanto Manta, Avijnata Vijnata. The self is the unseen seer, unheard hearer, unthought thinker, unknown knower. And how do you realize this? Sa Esha Neti Neti. Again, Mano Buddhi Ankara. That is why Brihadaranyaka is also known for Neti Neti. Now we come to the second last. The second last is the discussion. You can see how the slow evolution from Vyashti to Samashti, and in Samashti we had Hiranyagarbha, and then we had Antaryami. Now it is between Antaryami and Nirguna Brahma. What is the distinction between Saguna Brahma and Nirguna Brahma? And this was the question asked by Gargi. And Gargi asks this question. Now here comes the presence of Upadhi. Now it is because of Upadhi you have Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara. And if there is no Upadhi, there is no reflecting medium, the original consciousness is not distorted. And that is what you have is Nirguna Brahma. And that we have studied in all our classes. Now, so therefore, when the original consciousness gets reflected on my body, the jiva is born with limited alpagnya, with limited knowledge. When the same original consciousness is reflected on Maya, that is the total, the samashti, it is sarvagnya, or you have Ishvara, whom we talk of God with form. So this was the discussion. And Gargi was so impressed with Yagnavalika, she surrenders to him and she says, here is the greatest jnani ever. And she says, from now on, no more questions should be asked. He is the winner. Now, let us talk about a little bit about Upadi. What is an Upadi? Upadi is the limiting factor. An Upadi, see, when I am fast asleep, I am not connected to this body mind, and therefore I experience limitlessness and therefore ananda. The moment I wake up, my mind is born. The mind reflects the original consciousness and a jiva is born. And Upadi should have three entities. It should be Upa, near. It should be able to transfer attributes. That means because of this body mind, it transfer attributes to the original consciousness, and that Parabrahma, Paramatma, I now have become the individual limited being. And remember, this transference is not a real transfer, it is a seeming transfer. That means if I keep a crystal which is colorless next to a flower, the color of the flower or the color of a colored cloth gets seemingly transferred onto the crystal. And because of Upadis, we have the Jiva, we have the Jagat, and we have the Ishvara. But then if you are able to separate this out mentally through the process of Neti, and that is how we have worked from Brahmana 1 to Brahmana 9. And now you see the greatness of BRIHADARANYAKA. Then we come to the last Brahmana. The last Brahmana was Shakalya. Shakalya is symbolic of the egoistic person who is a scholar, who is very, very knowledgeable. And Shakalya, when you are so knowledgeable, even though Yagnavalika gives him so much wisdom, he's still so full of knowledge. And he still asks a question even after so many questions. And Yagnavalika said he answers his question. Here, the question was about Hiranya Garba Upasana and Saguna Brahma and Nirguna Brahma. And how do you go through it? So the whole process of Netin, it was a repetition. So he had to answer it once again. Remember, these are all Jalpavada. This is a very symbolic story. Swamiji does not give a lot of emphasis on it. But if I can go to the original Upanishad, the original story is like this. Now, when Shakalya was warned not to ask for the question once again, he insisted and asked Yagnavalika. Gargi warns him, this man is extremely powerful. I don't want you to ask any more questions. Shakalya jumps in and asks him a question. Symbolically, and Yagnavalika answers this question, then he asks Shakalya a counter question. He says, I want you to answer my question. And if you don't answer your question, your head will burst. In neurosurgery, we have an entity called aneurysms in the brain. And whenever a person has an abnormal blood vessel, suddenly it can rupture. And when it ruptures, there is a brain hemorrhage and you can see a person. We can lose a person right in front of us. Shakalya was not able to answer, and the story goes as his head burst. Of course, the bursting of the head means your ego is busted. So that is the story of the 9 Brahmanas. With that, we come to the conclusion of today's class. But I will bring in something about the Mahavakya, Aham Brahmasmi. Now, if we study BRIHADARANYAKA Upanishad, and if you're not clear about Mahavakya, and the Mahavakya that comes here is Aham Brahmasmi, we have missed something. I will request Panaga. Panaga, can you come on? And can we have a little teaching quiz? Now remember, this is a Samvada, it is not a Jalpavada. And I will ask you certain questions. Can you come on?
Yes, sir.
Panaga.
Yes.
Now, remember, now we are studying this. Sometimes I will not answer, I'll just reiterate a few. We are studying Muni Kandam. In Muni Kandam, the teacher is Yagnavalka. And here we have 2 Brahmanas. I'm sorry, two chapters, chapter 3 and chapter 4. Chapter 4 is the climax of BRIHADARANYAKA Upanishad, which we will study in the next class, in the next week. Here it is mainly about Jalpavada. When we come to the next class, there will be nice brahmanas, where there is a very beautiful teaching which will come in the form of Samvada. And both these are called Upapatti Kandam because they're all logic-based Kandam. My question to you, Panaga, is to what is this Hridaya Granthi?
It is the knot in the heart which stems basically from avidya. It is ignorance of our true nature. This avidya, it makes us think that we are not full and complete. So it gives rise to desire, that is kama. And once we have desire, we have to act upon it, which gives rise to karma. And when we act, it results in its phalam. So punya and papa, and this results in punarjanma.
Wonderful. This is something all of us should know. That is basically all of us are born with this capital of the knot in our heart, Hridaya Granthi. And the culmination is Vidyate Hridaya Granthi. You know, if something has to burst, this knot has to go. Avidya has to go. We have to dawn that knowledge. What I'm looking for, this is called Praptasya Prapti, accomplishment of the accomplishment. That means to discover our true nature. That is what we are all here. Now, this is Swamiji's question. Whenever a politician speaks, and a politician made any politician anywhere in the world, they give long speeches. But what is this tatparyam? What is the bottom line of every politician's speech, Panaga?
Vote for me.
That is true. They may be speaking about international policies, but they're all trying to say, now, because of me, there is so much of peace in the world. And, so much nice has happened because of me. They jump in and they want to say, because of me, vote for me. So too, whenever a spiritual teacher teaches, what is the tatparyam of all spiritual teachers? They may speak 100 words, the tatparyam or the bottom line.
Is you are that. That which you're looking
It
for.
is the Mahavakya. You are already that. Tatit Tatvamasi Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gochar. This is the message of all. Vedanta Vijnana Sunishtitartha. If you study Vedanta, you will discuss who I am. Nana Yar. Am I that, that because of my upadhi, that reflected consciousness, that is a combination of my body mind with the original consciousness at a new entity that is born, or I am that all-pervading Atma temporarily functioning through this body. If this idea should be very clear, Nane Yar, who is suffering? I am suffering, Bhagwan, people going. Who are you? Am I this limited person or am I Parabrahma, Paramatma? So the teaching comes through Mahavakyas. What is a Mahavakya, Anaka?
It is a statement which essentially equates the Jivatma and the Paramatma.
Wonderful. Any scriptural statement which brings about the essential oneness of Jiva and Ishvara is called a Mahavakya. And this is the greatest, when we look at the word Vakya means sentence, Maha means great sentence. Now, all these Mahavakyas are very small. Tattva is a small sentence. So it is not great in the form of a very big sentence. When you say Maharashtra, Mahakola, you think it's something big. In that way, it is not a big sentence, but it is a sentence with great meaning. And if you look at the great meaning, is there a sentence with the greatest possible meaning? If somebody comes and tells you, you are the one I'm looking for, who's supposed to inherit the whole world. Supposing, you were lost from your family and you have been living an ordinary life, and somebody comes and tells you, see, you are not who you think you are. You come from a certain royalty and you are supposed to inherit this verse. This is something even greater than that, because what we think is great, being the kingdom of this world, is all what we talk about Hiranya Garba. You can be the best in the world or the best in the Atma worlds, but there also you have samsaratvam. That is why we go into Mahavakya. Panaga, how many Mahavakyas are there?
There are several Mahavakyas, sir. In the Bhagavad Gita itself, we have many.
There are many Vakyas, thousands of them, they say, but then there are few sample Mahavakyas. How many sample Mahavakyas are there?
4 main from each of the Vedas.
Wonderful. So from each Veda, you have a Mahavakya. Now, there is a Sanskrit definition for Mahavakya. Would you remember what is the Sanskrit definition Swamiji talks of? It should be Jiva, Ishvara, Aikya, Bodhaka, Vakya.
Yes.
Jivatma, Paramatma, Aikyam, Bodhaka, Vakya is the definition of a Mahavakya. You will remember the story I told you. This man comes to him and says, see, you made me so rich. You made me the richest man in the world. You must be having something that makes you so great. What is that? I want that. And what does the sannyasi tell him?
He tells the man that he is already that.
You are that. See, of course, to be able to understand the statement requires years of Vedanta. And then when the statement touches you, that is why all our preparation is for the day the teacher gives you the Mahavakya. And the teacher gives you the Mahavakya only when the student is prepared. All right, otherwise it becomes word. Now, Swami Anubhavananda, great teacher of ours, has spoken something about spiritual life, and which is very impressive. He says spiritual life is not a part-time occupation. Then what should it be?
It is a full-time preoccupation.
Wonderful. It should be a full-time preoccupation. Wherever you are, whatever you are doing, the Shruti of your life is, I'm here to discover my true nature. Naham Deham Oham. I am here to inquire through Guru and Shastra. I want to discover Saha Aham Asmi. That is my. Swamiji also says another great statement. True freedom, is it freedom for me or something else?
It's freedom from the I, the ego.
It is freedom from I. I here is the lower I, the ego. True freedom, because anything else does not. I may run away from my home and go to Kailash Manasarovar or any ashram in the Himalayas, but as wherever I go, I am there. So true freedom is not for me, it is from me. Now, these are sentences which we need to reflect on. Now, please give me those 4 Mahavakyas from the 4 Vedas.
From the Rig Veda, it is Pragnanam Brahma. From the Yajur Veda, it is Aham Brahma Asmi. From the Sama Veda, it is Tattvamasi. And from the Atharva Veda, it is I am Atma Brahma.
Very good. So Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, and Pragnanam Brahma, and so on. Now, can you tell me which Upanishads these things come from?
Yeah. The Pragnanam Brahma comes from the Aitareya Upanishad.
Wonderful.
The next one, Aham Brahmasmi, comes from the Upanishad we are currently studying. It's the BRIHADARANYAKA Upanishad. The Tattvamasi comes from the Chandogya Upanishad. And I am Atma Brahma is from the Mandukya Upanishad.
If you will remember, this Aham Brahmasmi comes from I think it is in the first chapter itself. In the first chapter, in the 4th Brahmana, right in the beginning itself, we have got this Aham Brahmasmi. Prajnanam Brahma is in the 3rd chapter, 3rd mantra. Tattvamasi comes from the 6th chapter of Chandogya Upanishad, where the teacher Uddalaka teaches his son Shvetaketu 9 times. 9 times he goes around and says Tatu Tvamasi. And I am Atma Brahma. We have studied it from Mandukya. Of course, it is the 2nd mantra. So these are the various mantras, and you will see from which Upanishad and which mantra, and Chandogya Upanishad, Shashti, the 8th chapter, 6th chapter, 8th section, mantra number 7, and so on. I mean, technical details not important. Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, and the Atharva Veda. Now, when Adi Shankara, I'm just going a little beyond Panaga, just to find, just so that this sinks into our mind. When Adi Shankara established 4 matas, he established a mata in Jagannath Puri, that is in the east. Then he came down into the south in Sringeri. Then he went to the west, that is in Dwaraka. Then in north, in Jyotirmat Badrinath. So he established that each of these centers should focus on one particular Veda and the one particular Mahavakya. Can you tell me how these Vedas have been divided by Adi Shankara into which matas?
Yes, sir. The Rig Veda is established or is propagated in Jagannath Puri. So it is the Govardhan Matha. The Yajur Veda is in Sringeri, the Sringeri Matha. Sama Veda is in Dwarka, the Kalika Matha, and the Atharva Veda is in Badrinath, the Jyotir Matha.
The last question in this topic is, now when he established these four matas and he said these matas should focus on the Vedas and the Mahavakyas, now he established one of his close associates into each, the Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, and the Atharva Veda. Can you tell me who was the first Acharya for Jagannath Puri?
It was Sri Hasta Malaka, sir.
Wonderful. And for Sringeri?
It is Sri Sureshwaracharya.
Correct. For Dwaraka?
Dwaraka was Padma Padacharya.
Correct. And for Badri, Jyotirmat?
Badri was Sri Totakacharya.
Wonderful. These are the four acharyas. So just you don't have to remember all these things, but I'm just giving you how important these Mahavakyas. Now there is a little story. Let me share this particular story with you about how these Mahavakyas came into being. Now it's a story of a person, a young person goes to a teacher, like all of us, goes to a great teacher and he says, I want Brahma Vidya. So the teacher goes through Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, and when the student is ready, then he gives the spiritual wisdom that Brahman exists in the form of consciousness. All of us are conscious. And he says that consciousness in all of us is called Prajnana Brahma. So the student understands about Brahman as existent. And this Vakya that has come in Aitareya Upanishad is also called Lakshana Vakya. And after some time, he teaches the student and he says, see, that consciousness in you, that consciousness in me, he gives him another Vakya and he says, Tat Tvam Asi. It is not Brahma Asti, it is Brahma Asmi. You are that. It is not that Brahman, that limitless, all pervading, which is without any attributes, is none other than my true nature. And the student gets the Upadesha by the teacher by the third Mahavakya, Tat Tvam Asi. Initially, when the teacher says you are that, it takes a long time. So the student had to go through a lot of mananam. How is the teacher saying you are Brahman? Because my experiences is of so much limitations. Although I know I have consciousness, but how can I be Brahman? It takes years and years. And finally, the student realizes this. It becomes his anubhava. When it becomes his anubhava, he comes and tells the teacher, Aham Brahmasmi. When the message of the teacher comes to an anubhava, an experiential level, and then the student comes to the teacher, and this teacher and the student have to part, and the teacher gives you a parting advice. Anusandhanam. There is something that should be the Shruti of your life. Ayam Atma Brahma. This word Ayam means that which is so close to me, closer than the closest. That which is closer, that Atma Tattva, that consciousness in me is none other than Brahman. A nice story to remember about Aham Brahmasmi. Remember, now let us analyze this Mahavakya from the BRIHADARANYAKA Upanishad, first chapter, fourth Brahmana, which says Aham Brahmasmi. What is the meaning of the word Aham? What is the root word? How does the word Ham come? Or Han means?
So, Han means to kill. So, as you've shown, sir, the Sri Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that this Atma, or you are that which na hanyate hanyamane sharire. So that this Atma or your true self is not killed even when the body is slain.
Very good. So the word Han means to kill. Aham means that which cannot be killed. So in me, there is a mortal component. That is why we have Mrityorma amritam gamaya. Let me move from that component in me which is perishable, which is growing, graying, going. It is useful, but I am not that. I move from that to the aham, that which can never undergo any change. And that happens when tamas is destroyed, when the hridaya granthi is broken, when the darkness is gone through light, and that light takes me from asat to sat. That is the great mantra that again comes in the first chapter of this. And then you discover that this aham in me is the same as Brahman in the total. Aham Brahmasmi. And I've already told you about this mantra, Asatoma Sadgamaya. Now we have to know what is an upadi. Because of this upadi, I have a feeling of limitations. Panaga, what do you mean by upadi?
It is an instrument or conditioning factor, sir.
What are the three aspects of an upadi?
So the upadhi has to be very near. It has to be so near that it transfers its attributes to you. And this transfer should be such that it appears that the attributes have been transferred, but in reality, they have not been transferred.
Very true. See, it is very close to you. You means aham. See, in me, there are two me's. One is the Brahman component, which is all pervading. Then there is this body mind. This body mind transfers to the Atma here, and a new entity of the limited ego is born. But this transfer is not a real transfer. It can be mentally separated, and that process is through apavada when the student is ready, through neti, neti, neti. And then you declare Aham Brahmasmi, it should become an Anubhava. This affects not only me, it affects the Jagat also. Because of the Upadi, I experience Jiva, Jagat, and Ishvara. And even from the Jagat, I should be able to take the Upadi, Nama, Rupa. In Tattva, in Viriktirishya, we will be saying, I make a mistake here. I fail to see the existence of Ishwarupa, Ishvara. I need to see Brahman in me. And of course, Ishvara, there we don't have to remove the Upadi. See, once you come to this level, then you will see from Jiva, I need to remove. From Jagat, I need to remove the Nama Rupa. But Ishvara, I need to thank the Ishvara for giving me a guru and giving me this knowledge that I am Mano Buddhi Hankara Chittani Natha. So in final, before I declare Aham Brahmasmi, let us all remember that in each of us, there is the lower I or the ego or Ahankara. In me, there is also the limit, which is finite. In me is also the Atma or Sakshi. Now, all our spiritual sadhana is to you see this body mind as only a useful interaction source, but it is not me. It is only a drama that I have to do. And the Shruti of my life is I am Atma Brahma. And of course, this can be meditated on by this nice mantra, Tat Chintanam, Tat Katanam. That means whatever I think about this. Tat Katanam. Whenever I speak to somebody, I speak to this. Anyon Tat Prabodhanam. If there is somebody who is willing to learn, I teach this. Etad Eka Paratvam. Other than this, nothing else entertains my mind. Tad Abhyasa Vidur Buddhaha. Wise people say this is what is called Nidithyasana. Final question to you, Panaga. Swamiji has defined sannyasa as what? This is a very strong definition. Let us meditate on that. What does Swamiji talk about sannyasa as?
Swamiji defines sannyasa as the mental preparedness to lose anything at any time.
Guru Pyo Namaha. Let us have that strength. I value my body, I value my mind, I value my possessions, I value everybody in my family, I value my friends, I value my profession. But all these are only in the mithya or in the dream domain. They are not the real me. And therefore, one day when I have to relinquish from all of them, I should be able to say thank you for having given them for me for so long. They were never mine. And therefore, I am ever ready to relinquish all these And as long as they are together, thank you. And whenever the time goes away, to separate them, the mental preparedness to lose anything to any time. And this is the vairagya that we have. Otherwise, to move from my gross body, subtle body, causal body to Atma remains only a dream. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha.
We are really thankful to Dr. Timappa Hegde, sir. Your explanation to chapter 2 of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad and Mahavakyas are amazing. Your explanation is so clear and makes it easy for us to understand. We are happy to keep learning from him and look forward to studying more of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad in the coming weeks. The question answer sessions are helping us understand the topics really well. Thanks to Pannaga for answering the quiz session questions in today's session. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad classes will be premiere every Monday at 6:45 p.m. Don't miss session 4 of the insightful text Drik Drishya Viveka on Friday, 6th June. Dear friends, before concluding the session, there is an important announcement. Our classes are completely free of cost. However, at Param Vedanta, we have a beautiful tradition of offering Guru Dakshina together to our gurus on Gita Jayanti. As the Bhagavad Gita 18.5 quotes, Yagna Dana Tapah Karma Na Tyajyam Karyam Evatat, meaning charity, sacrifice, and austerity should never be given up. They purify even the wise. In this spirit, we warmly invite you to take part in this collective offering. All contributions will be humbly offered at the lotus feet of our gurus. Please note that this is purely voluntary. There is absolutely no compulsion to contribute. Bank details are shown on the screen and will also be shared in our Telegram group. After making the transfer, kindly fill in the Google form. Importantly, contributions must be made in INR from a bank account based in India. We thank you for your love and support. Friends, let's conclude today's session with the Shanti Mantra. Om Purnamadam Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hari